It's time to get sexy on Secular Sexuality.
Hello and welcome to Secular Sexuality, the ACA show currently holding the longest streak without a hang-up. I'm Christy Powell. My co-host this week has an OnlyFans and a YouTube, so whichever itch you want to scratch, welcome Rudy B.
Hello.
And our guest tonight, here to threaten our active streak and take your calls, is Matt Dillahunty.
I'm not in good charge of the phone. I couldn't possibly hang up on somebody.
It's by design. It's by design. We appreciate you being here either way.
It is a superior design. I applaud you.
Well, Rudy, where can people reach us at?
If you would like to call a show and have a chat with us tonight, you can call the show at 512-991-9242 or at tiny.cc/callsex.
All right, well, let's jump right into it. I appreciate both of y'all being here and kind of sharing your unique experiences with us. You know, being atheist, I know a lot of folks in our audience can relate to a lot of these struggles. And then being activists, being kind of in the public eye, but also being maybe attached or associated with a bunch of ideas that maybe are yours, maybe not. I'm really curious to hear about y'all's experiences. Like much of our audience, I think all three of us deconverted from a pretty intense relationship with religion. What was the impact on that, on your identity as a dater, as a partner or a husband or wife or whatever else might be coming to mind?
I don't think for me it impacted me much at all immediately, because at the time that I transitioned away from religion, I wasn't dating anybody. I wasn't interested in dating anybody. I was focused on my job. I was focused on a number of other things. I went from being a devout Christian to an outspoken hosting a TV show atheist before I started dating again. And
yeah, I mean, was religion a piece of that? Was it just a lack of interest or a hard and fast rule?
No, at the time, while I was still a believer, I don't know why. I think there were a lot of things that were like in the back of my head troubling me about relationships and everything else with the religious baggage. There's a ton of baggage that was dumped into me by religion growing up, particularly around sex, like anybody else. And I think by the time I gave up religion and was already identifying as an atheist and started to date, I made up my mind at that point. Well, I'm not going to date somebody who's not an atheist. Or I went with the biblical idea of don't be unequally yoked. I thought it would be a mistake for me, and for other people it works. I know friends who are in long-term relationship marriages with one person who has wildly different beliefs than them. I just can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, how about you, Rudy? How did your religious experience impact maybe the way you see yourself as a dater, or just what that journey's been like?
So part of the reason I left religion is because what I wanted to do as far as dating and what I saw for myself as right for me did not fit with the religion that I was brought up in. So by the time I deconverted while dating an atheist. And I was already disfellowshipped from the Jehovah's Witnesses, but I was still a believer. So I already had kind of disassociated myself and my desires and my thoughts about love and marriage and sex and all that from how I'd been taught. And it wasn't that I didn't think it was a sin. I still did. I still felt immense guilt. My partner can tell you that there were times where literally I'd be up in the middle of the night sobbing, like, I'm going to die at Armageddon. I'm going to get killed at Armageddon. And, oh, this is a terrible mistake. But at the same time, the next day I'd just go back to living my life. It was real complicated. It was ugly and messy. And then at one point a light bulb switched and I was like, I don't have any good reason to believe any of that. And then it was just like, okay, now I can just do what I've already been doing without the guilt.
Well, how did you and your partner navigate that? I mean, how did they support you while, not really agreeing with you as you're screaming about Armageddon and everything else?
Yeah, you'd have to ask him. It was a wild time, but he was just really supportive. He was kind of blindsided by this because he didn't really know how to navigate that. He had been religious previously. He wasn't an always atheist, but he was not in anything even remotely like the cult that I was brought up in. So
Sure.
it was obviously very different.
That's
at one point,
that's a real weird one. Sorry to
Yeah.
cut in, but just
no, you're right.
that experience of like not wanting to one up somebody else's trauma, but also trying to say like, yeah, I get it. Like, yes, you were raised Christian and you went to church on Easter and everything, and that was like a big part of your life, I guess.
Mhm.
But that wasn't quite the same experience.
Yeah, and that was something that after I deconverted, we talked about for a little while, was sort of that difference there and how he was navigating that. There was even a point where I was so distressed that he recommended that I go to find another church to go to. He was recommending that as an atheist, just so that I could have something to fill that gap.
Sure.
And I was like, no, I don't want that. I don't want that at all. I don't want anything to do with religion right now because, I didn't want just any religion. I wanted the one that I thought was true, which I was actively not following. So, yeah, and it was real not fun for either of us, I guess, at that point. But, lo and behold, he's watching the Atheist Experience. Matt says some things that I couldn't ignore, and I was like, that version of reality makes a lot more sense because I really, literally outside of the context of my religious upbringing, nothing else about our relationship felt wrong. Nothing else about it seemed wrong. I couldn't justify it as wrong. So then I guess I was like, well, maybe it's not. Maybe these are totally arbitrary rules.
Yeah. Well, what were some of those sticking points? I mean, for both of you, as you're like leaving or as you've left religion, what are those pieces that you still, kind of hold on to, or that were maybe getting in the way of the sex or the love or whatever else you're looking to have?
Yeah, I think both my parents and my religion and the U.S. Navy probably did a bit of a number on me because, first of all, the Navy lied to us all the time. Basically, every port you got into, they have more incidents of AIDS here than anywhere else we're going to stop. You would hear that everywhere you go because they just wanted to discourage you from going out and having unprotected sex and stuff. But, the notion that sex was something holy between a man and a woman and reserved for after marriage, don't get me wrong. I had sex when I was 15 with somebody I met at church. So clearly it's not going to be this is how we know abstinence only education doesn't work. But some of that baggage about what was okay and how we should go about dating and just sexuality in general hung around. And I never went like full on rebellious, like, oh, to heck with all those warnings from, mom and dad and the pastors and all that. I'm just going to go, bang anybody and everybody and throw caution. I never did anything like that. I was always extra cautious. And I've had massive body image issues off and on over the years. And it's like, if I don't feel like I want to fuck me, why would I expect anybody else to do that? And if we're talking about some sort of sexual relationship, that can really put a damper on things. And that's one of the things that probably took me a little while to get past. But when I started dating, I started dating people within the atheist community. And wound up married. And then when I found myself divorced and was dating again, my first instinct, which I'll talk more about later and give reasons and stuff, but it's not relevant to this question, was I don't want to date anybody who's involved in the atheist community at all. I want to date an atheist, but one that's not involved in the community. And there were reasons for that, but
yeah,
that's not the religious baggage. That's my own.
It's funny that you say that because when I was disfellowshipped but still believing, I didn't want to date a religious person. I very specifically wanted to date an atheist because I didn't want anybody in my life that was going to try to influence me with anything religious. It's like I have all this baggage and shit I do not need anymore. I don't need anybody trying to influence me to find Jesus again or anything like that. Do not need it, do not want it. So I guess I didn't know at the time that I was actively looking for an atheist, but when I went on the first date with Nathan and he was like, yeah, I'm an atheist, I was like, okay, this is going to make this so much easier.
The release there.
Yeah. But as far as my hangups, I feel like I'd already been spending the 2 or 3 years prior to me actually getting disfellowshipped losing a lot of that baggage, which is what caused me to leave, because my views of what was right and wrong had already changed so much that it was like I can't justify this to myself and I'm miserable. So yeah.
There was somebody in chat who asked a question that I want to address real quick because I think it's kind of relevant in the sense that it's not. Because based on what we were saying, Royster asked, is atheist a sexual preference? And you could intuitively go like, yes, I'm attracted to atheist, but no, not remotely. And this isn't about sex. This is about who I want to be who I want to be friends with. I want to be in a relationship with someone I'm friends with, and I want to respect my friends. And if our views are too far apart, it makes it very difficult to respect all those aspects about the person. So while I would say that I only want to date an atheist, it's not because I'm somehow sexually attracted to atheists. I'm intellectually attracted to rational people, and then the sex thing comes afterwards.
Yeah, now that I've shed much of those religious hangups, I would be comfortable dating a Christian as long as our values were, somewhat aligned. I mean, presumably they'd have to be a pretty progressive Christian, and they also probably couldn't be too churchy for my taste, but
too churchy for my taste. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
also,
it sounds
while
like
I'm
you're saying that you feel less like vulnerable. Now that you've gotten some space, now that you're like this very accomplished and public atheist, you know what you know a little bit better. Yeah.
I don't know about very accomplished, but
You're making the show look bad, Rudy. You're a big celebrity. I've been telling people all day.
Take it and run with it.
Okay, sure.
Rudy's accomplishments are legendary, and if you're unaware of them, you should tune into more ACA content. I don't know what's wrong with you, but we will fix it.
I've been on every show but the Atheist Experience. That's an accomplishment.
All right, one last Everest. So Rudy, I mean, if you are in this kind of different place, I mean, how did either of you find that healing? Is it just sort of like rejecting religion whole cloth and then getting a little bit of space from it? Or was there anything, more specific for either of you?
I think I just needed time. Like, just, as I got more comfortable in the relationship that I was in, the longer I was in it, the more we worked out our own issues, the more I was like, I never needed a God for this. I never needed a God to make this work. I'm here. I'm happy. Things are fine. It's not a traditional relationship according to Christian Jehovah's Witness values at all. And we're both very happy. And I'm very happy. It literally just took the time and space from being away from it and just becoming secure in myself, in who I am and what I want, and being able to take the time to find out from him who he is and what he wants, and just being secure in myself and being secure in us.
Mm-hmm. Matt, anything you'd add to that?
Well, I don't. So, for example, when Beth and I started dating, there wasn't any adjustment. It was just my life had already changed, and now I'm dating somebody with similar views. And afterward, after I was divorced, when I started dating again, I didn't want to date anybody in the community, but it didn't have anything to do with dating as an atheist or even dating as an activist. It had more to do with dating as a somewhat public figure, because there are people who, on a daily basis, I am either attacked or loved in bizarre ways by random people. And that makes it difficult. So I was like, I don't want to date anybody who knows me. which is why I was out of the. I want to get to know someone and have them get to know me, and I think that was a good idea at the start to help me kind of get back into dating, because I don't like dating. I got stuff going on. I just know that I'm not good on my own, and trust me, I found it throughout COVID. I used to think I was really good at being alone, and I'm not. I'm terrible at it, and this has been a lot. But the decision not to date anybody within the movement was perhaps good at the time, but it cannot last, because if you spend every day, all day in this movement and say, I'm not going to date anybody who's involved and not going to date anybody who knows me, you're not going to date anybody. And if you're fine with that, then be fine with it. Because I was fine with it for quite a while. But eventually, I mean, I'm in a great, stable, monogamous relationship now with a wonderful woman in the movement. And I think I had to go through all those other steps to get to where I am now. I mean, I know that sounds kind of, everybody would say something like that, but I think it's true. A truism because it's your truism, because it's true to some extent. So,
no, I get it. I mean, that journey does have a lot of steps, and I think that's going to be true of anybody. Like you said, as we're all kind of figuring out who we are, who we want to connect with, who we are in that moment, and what kind of relationship we need is that sort of version of ourselves. But it's interesting to hear the different steps along the way that y'all both took. Now that you're in this place, I recognize you're both in, very happy, stable relationships, but I'm curious if there are any kind of lingering challenges, anything that you are, still kind of struggling to shake off day to day.
Yeah. I mean, the challenges that I'm facing right now aren't due to religion. Right now, the biggest challenges are distance and a pandemic that are preventing us from doing what would be normal dates. So it's more like, hey, we want to watch WandaVision, so I'm going to set up some sort of thing where we can watch it together and be in a Zoom meeting, and it'll be kind of like a date. And then when the safety, when it's safe to do so, I drove down to Florida for Thanksgiving and interacted with nobody but a gas pump on the way down there. And I'm hoping that she gets to come up here for spring break, all things, especially now that we're starting to get vaccines. But I learned a lot in the past year that, and just the other day, I'm not going to go into details, but just the other day, I made a mistake. It was just me being not thinking about things except how I saw them, and not taking into consideration how somebody else might view them. And it was monumentally inconsiderate, and yet I was oblivious. And when I was called out on it, I was immediately like, whoa, what's going on? What? This was, this is not a thing. And then I realized, oh no, you screwed up. And so I did what you're supposed to do and what I want to do, which is acknowledge it, apologize, make a plan going forward to never have anything like that happen. And then, you have to rebuild trust that you lost, that you didn't even know you were risking.
Right.
And people, we're all going to do this, but every relationship that I've had that didn't work out, every single one of them was tied to a communication issue of some sort. Now, whether or not that communication problem was brought on by, in a couple of cases, mental health issues that people were going through, and so that impaired communication. In other cases, it wasn't so much about a religion itself, but about the same type of thinking that we might put religion in, where I was okay with somebody that wasn't religious, but they were into more woo than I was. And while I was willing to kind of let them be them, you can't be the guy who goes on TV to talk about how, this is bullshit and this is bullshit and this is bullshit. And then have your partner, looking at you afterwards and talking about wooey stuff. So it's almost every one of them was a communication issue.
Yeah, I mean, communication and then just worldview, wanting to be with somebody that sees the world close enough to the way you see it so that you can sort of complement each other and get a wider understanding of things without being, completely opposed to it. I know we mentioned a couple of times this idea of dating somebody who is religious and whether or not we would. And when it works because people may have, some different fundamental beliefs about the universe, but are still able to kind of get together and agree on what's right and wrong and what we should do about those ideas. Has that been y'all's experience?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
If that hadn't been the case, my partner wouldn't have started dating me,
Sure.
because my ideas about the universe were utterly bizarre. But I think that it's funny, we both broadened each other's worldview, but we also started from a pretty similar spot. We started off with like, okay, we're both progressive leftists. We both think that in general, people should just like be good to each other. That was where we started off from. And he called things into question that I hadn't thought about before, and I did the same for him. Like, one time he was like, it's kind of rapey, don't you think, that God impregnated Mary, and then told her about it afterwards. And I was like, shut up. Just shut, like, don't say that. How dare you say that? Don't talk about that. That's not funny. That's not cool. Like, I was mad. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I don't have a way to refute that.
It makes me mad, but he's not wrong.
Yeah. So and then it was conversations like that helped me broaden my worldview. So.
Well, how about you, Rudy? Do you feel like there are still some, kind of lingering challenges? Just the way you view sex or the way you view communication or gender or any of these other pieces that, you maybe have learned and like know what's right, but, still get nagged by some of those doubts or just maybe assumptions that you haven't gotten around to challenging yet.
It's weird because as far as gender, sexuality, relationships, I came out of the Jehovah's Witness cult with a surprisingly good sense of what I was looking for and what was good and what was not, which is weird because most of that education did not come from my religious upbringing. I don't know where it came from. The internet, I have no idea, but it seemed to already be there to some degree, but it certainly didn't come from being a Jehovah's Witness. I don't think I had a lot of lingering struggles as far as relationships went. I definitely had lingering struggles, like a terrible perfectionist streak and feeling like if I wasn't doing everything I could possibly be doing towards my goals at all times, that I was just a failure. Sure. Because that's the mindset that you have as a Jehovah's Witness. If you're not reading the Bible every day and praying at every meal and before bed, and if you're not going to every meeting and give like such amount of comments and have this and that and the other during the week, if you're not doing literally everything you can do at all times, then it's not enough. And that mindset stuck with me, and it did have a bad effect on my relationship, but it wasn't relationship specific, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, no, I hear that.
I love what Rudy's saying about not knowing where those ideas come from. Although in my case, I can't give credit to the internet because I started having some of these ideas before there was an internet to mess around on. And I don't know where they would have come from other than I've tended to give credit for like eye-opening things that were subversive with regard to my religious beliefs to music, comedy, some science education, even a little like Schoolhouse Rock. Like there's some Schoolhouse Rock that is a little crappy, wooey, God focused. And then there's other stuff where it's just like, you learn something. And I haven't gone back. I don't want to go back and watch. I have the box set. I'm a huge fan of Schoolhouse Rock. and I can do most of them off the top of my head. I don't want to go back and watch the one on pronouns because I'm sure I know it's going to be exclusive now, even though everything it teaches is still absolutely the case. I found him and he found me and they found an aardvark. I can't see
we had those all on DVD and we would just watch them like nonstop. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they're like my favorite things. But now when I go back and listen, 3 is a magic number annoys me just a little bit, but not much. and still they're stuck in my head. Like, I can tell you the preamble to the Constitution of the United States. There's no reason for me to know that word for word, but I know that sucker word for word thanks to Schoolhouse Rock.
Because it was said to you in song form.
Yeah,
And
so
I don't
long
know
as you
why
hum
we're
it
not
along,
still
right?
doing. Yeah, I don't know why we're not still doing more of that. You want to figure out how to teach critical thinking? Write some funny damn songs, put them in a cartoon, and stick them in schools.
You're
He's
not
not
wrong.
wrong. He
That's
is
an
not wrong.
argument from ignorance, and here's how it goes.
Oh, I need to find somebody who animates and get with you on that, Matt. That's a great idea.
Well, in the meantime, Rudy, do you have any callers for us?
We do have one caller on the line.
Sure.
Charlotte from the UK, she, her pronouns. She says she'd like to talk about coming out to her Catholic mom, who has said some homophobic things to her in the past. Charlotte, you are on with Rudy, Matt, and Christy.
Hi, Charlotte.
Hi, how are you all?
Not too bad. What can we do for you tonight?
Good. So I just wanted to talk through my situation. So I'm married. I'm bisexual. I'm polyamorous. I'm somewhat gender fluid. And
Me too.
I'm kind of collectively out at the moment, but not to my family. And at the moment, I feel quite confident in who I am and my sexuality. I've met some new partners who are amazing. And because it's been lockdown, I've kind of been in a situation where I've been able to kind of improve my communication with my husband, kind of do a lot of soul searching. And I've come to kind of realise that in my place of work, with quite a few peers, quite a few people are the same kind of thinking as me, and I can be who I am at work. And that feels amazing.
Yeah, congratulations there.
Thank you. And it just feels amazing to kind of drop that front and be who I am. Mm-hmm. And I think I'd like that with my family, but there are quite a few issues there. So I had to kind of truncate what I said to the call screeners. But my mum, she's not strictly Catholic herself. She goes through phases of believing in God and not, but she was kind of raised by a Catholic family. So throughout my life, she's been very critical of me and who I am, from how I look, how I dress, my way. She's been very critical of who I spend time with, what the choices that I make, pretty much you name it. If it's not what she would have chosen to do, then it would get criticised. So over the last couple of years, I've been kind of putting my foot down more. And actually last year, she was starting to mistreat me when I went to visit her. So I got in my car and I drove a couple of 100 miles back home. So since then, we've kind of been repairing things. But if I am going to be in a position where things are repaired, isn't it best for me to kind of be who I am? But then, however that might go, because, you know, she's called me all sorts of, she said that I look like, you know, things that I don't want to repeat because they're horrific slurs. Anytime I had a book that was kind of anyway LGBT leaning, she'd kind of pick it up, sneer at it, ask me what it was doing in my bedroom, that sort of stuff. Like, you know, it may go quite badly, but I'm also just thinking, you know, what can she say? Nothing could kind of persuade me otherwise. I am who I am.
Yeah. I mean, just with that kind of resume, I'm curious to know what kind of relationship you are looking for. with her? I mean, never mind whether or not you decide to come out. We can definitely have that conversation, but I'm curious what your ideal role for her in your life would look like, just given the history that y'all have and the way that she's reacted to you. What's sort of your best case scenario there?
I think the best case scenario is just to have acknowledgement that there's an understanding of who I am, rather than trying to change who I am. But at this point, it's kind of like, you know, if she doesn't, then, you know, I made a point of moving several hundred miles away where, you know, I was then able to kind of take stock of the situation. I got therapy a couple of times. And it wasn't until then that I kind of realised that the way that she spoke to me and treated me wasn't actually normal, which sounds really weird.
No, I get that.
It's something that's really like.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah, it's just I think like if she's kind of tolerating me in a way that that she's, you know, in a perception that she's got that's incorrect, I think I kind of want to correct that and kind of, you know, if...
Yeah, I appreciate that you want to live authentically as yourself, but I guess I am still stuck at the question of what kind of relationship would you even want with her? I'm not at all telling you to cut out an important member of your family from your life, but I am raising the question and letting you know that that's a valid option. And there's a lot of ground, it sounds like, between where you are and going to, you know, total lockdown and completely ending that relationship. But I want to make sure you feel empowered to know that that's a valid option, and that you can, you know, either create a little bit more distance and space or create a lot more distance and space if that's what you need to do in order to be respected and treated with kindness.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the moment, I feel I'm at a point where, so last Christmas before, I think it was 2018 to 19, went down to visit. I moved long away, so I drove quite a long way. And I went to see a friend, stayed there until 4 o'clock in the morning, just gas bagging. Got to my phone, and it turned out that she'd been ringing me all night, trying to figure out where I was. And I got back, and she, you know, was ripping into my friends, like my life choices, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I was just like, you know, if you're going to do this again, I'm going to go back home. So,
Sure.
And then I left a letter with her, just explaining, you know, as I'd tried to verbally in the past, but just got shut down, just explaining how she'd made me feel over the years. And she kind of phoned me up afterwards, about a week after all this happened. And, you know, she was trying to kind of play the victim. You know, how could you say these hurtful things? And I just said to her, look, you know, those things are a fact. And that fact is that is how I feel and how you've made me feel. And after that point, she's been walking on eggshells quite a lot. She's been quite kind of like tetchy, not in a kind of defensive way, but more in a kind of like, ooh, sort of like not touching the kettle when it's hot sort of thing. But I hear that.
I'm glad that she's making space for you to be yourself. And it sounds like you're looking now to be, I guess, a little bit more authentic and to let her in and to make yourself kind of vulnerable even by opening up these pieces of yourself to her. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, it's over since that happened, as I've been thinking about it, I've kind of made the decision to kind of accept and forgive because, you know, I was carrying a lot of anger. The first part of my therapy was to kind of allow myself to actually feel that anger and, you know, let myself know that it was valid. But it was weighing me down quite a lot.
Sure.
So I think, you know, a positive step in kind of letting that go would be in, you know, actually being myself and not kind of having to do bullshit like go onto Facebook and do selective audiences when I don't want to say anything to say, you know?
Yeah. Well, just in terms of how to practically have that conversation, do y'all have any tips for how to bring this up or for how to get through this disclosure, this, I guess, coming out party?
I have a question though, and I don't want to act like I'm an analyst. It's just this is what popped in my head. First of all, I'm sorry to hear you're dealing with all this, Charlotte. But have you talked to your mom about her relationship with her mother? I don't want to get all patterny, but there's a number of reasons why people will lash out over this, and it may be that you're doing the sort of things that she always wanted to do and never got to do, and so there's jealous, or it could be that there's so much guilt and shame just generally around these things that that she's upset. I've known people who have spent 50 years unable to be who they are and are very bitter to people who can be who they are. And so I just didn't know if you'd had conversations with your mom about her mom.
Yeah, I mean, that's been quite a constant because I lost my grandparents when I was very, very young. So there's always been a massive sense of grief, but because she lost her parents by the time she was, you know, younger than me. She spent a lot of time with her grandmother when she was young because her mum was quite ill. But her grandmother was a very strict Catholic, and kind of mum keeps saying that she instilled in her just this idea that the body is shameful, and that pleasure is shameful.
This makes perfect sense.
But, yeah,
your mom had a number done on her, and she feels like she's letting down God and your grandmother. That's what it is. My parents, my dad felt like he failed me as a spiritual leader as soon as he found out I was an atheist. And so I've seen this same sort of thing. First thing I would talk to your mom. I agree with Christy, of course, that, you know, figure out what kind of relationship you're wanting to have, but you've got to talk to your mom and you have to let her know that this is your life and that if she thinks you're doing something bad, she's not to blame because you are the captain of your own ship. And if she has concerns about something, she should come to you and talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's never been particularly open with anything she's saying, and it could vary from one day to the next. And also, yeah, a lot of the time, you know, she would talk to dig at me or to kind of make me feel insensitive, but make me feel sensitive. But lately, since I put my foot down, since I told her how she made me feel, she's just been talking to me adult to adult. And it's interesting because we've had conversations about polyamory before, because my brother is a bit of a love rat. And he, I don't know why I'm laughing. It's not good. He's messed women around in the past, and I've frustratedly said, you know, it is the 21st century. He can be polyamorous. He does know that's an option, doesn't he? And, you know, that kind of wasn't really met with anything kind of, that's a really strange thing to say or anything like that. In fact, I have suspicions that my mum might have dabbled in such, you know, with polyamory adjacent things as well.
Sure. Different terminology and all that. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you are able to kind of open that door and that you've established this like new tone where you are expected to be treated like an adult. And, you know, there is the possibility that like sitting her down and saying like, all right, buckle up. I got a whole list of adjectives we're going to have to get through because I'm bi and I'm this and I'm that. that there may be some value in that sort of approach, but from everything you're telling me, it sounds like the best way to be authentically yourself is to just be yourself. And if it comes up, if it sort of is part of the topic of conversation, or if you want to sort of let out bits and pieces of who you are as they come to light, it sounds like she might be a lot more receptive to that, because then it's talking about you. This is a story that I'm telling you about somebody I dated. Ha ha ha, this funny thing happened to me last week. And it's now about you as a human being and as her daughter, as opposed to, well, let's sit down and have this intellectual debate about these high-minded cosmic ideas that is going to, really trigger that defense mechanism and bring up a lot of these more rigid ways of thinking.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And it's I think one of the reasons I was thinking of kind of blurting it out is just because in the past I felt like I've been lying by omission. The topic would come up and I would just keep quiet. And I felt that was lying by omission. But I suppose I could wait for those opportunities, because it's not like they don't come up. Like that conversation about my brother wasn't that long ago. So it's not too far to reach to say, I'm polyamorous actually.
Yeah, well, and beyond that, I guess I just want to continue to stress that if your mother is in your life, it is by your choice. And I hope that that's a intentional and active choice that you're making on purpose and not just at a default. And then how much you choose to share about yourself. You can call it a lie of omission, and I recognize that keeping huge parts of your life a secret may not be the best way to build a relationship, but depending on where the relationship is at, you do have the right not just to your autonomy, but to your privacy. And I don't know that you owe it to anybody to share these things. It's certainly nice when you can. And I definitely want to encourage you to be transparent and open and proud of who you are, but not in such a way as it's just going to get you slapped around if it feels like there's going to be a lot of tension or even verbal or even physical abuse around these issues.
Yeah, and I think these days, I don't think it would. I think the place now, and I always think, I'm 34 now, so I think it's really late to figure yourself out. But I suppose it's never really late to figure yourself out. It happens when it happens. But I also think that she's gone through a bit of a journey herself. As I've been treating her kind of in a different way, or as I've been behaving in a more kind of confident and assertive way. So yeah, I think it might well be a bit of a natural progression, but I think what I'm afraid of is just becoming a joke. But I mean, like I say, it wasn't a joke when it came up before, and also I've actually kind of spotted that my brother's looked at the same polyamory memes pages as I follow. So I think it's not, something they'd be kind of, that aspect anyway would not be something that they'd be unfamiliar with. But, the things that they've called me and that she's called me about, she doesn't know that I'm bisexual at all, but she's been very kind of disparaging of the idea that a woman would fancy another woman. Heaven forbid.
Well, it definitely doesn't sound like a super safe environment to be vulnerable in. So, I do want to encourage you to tread with caution and just know that you're in control of what you disclose and when you disclose. And to remember, Dan Savage's rule about relationships with parents. The greatest leverage you have in your relationship with your parents is your presence. If you don't, you're not forced to be in that relationship. And that's not to say that you need to be shitty and abusive about that and withholding in all of these awkward ways, but you can be very direct and straightforward about the fact that you're just not going to put up with that kind of thing. So I want to give Rudy a chance to jump onto another call. So I know we have a few of them stacking up, but I want to give them a chance to weigh in here as well before we do.
All I really wanted to add, Charlotte, is that I am also gender fluid. I'm pansexual and polyamorous. And I have had, not with my mom, but with my mother-in-law, some problems, some issues that we've ended up having to hash out. And had to set some boundaries on, like, okay, this is what we're not gonna do. We're not gonna do this. Like, for the first half of 2020, me and my partner weren't talking to his family hardly at all, because of a falling out that had happened. But sometime in the spring or summer, we sat down together and we hashed things out. And it was difficult. And it's an ongoing process. It's not going to be one conversation.
Yeah.
But every conversation you have, if you make even a little bit of ground in saying, you know, this is what we're not going to do, this right here, I'm not sticking around for this, that's a little bit further in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm sorry you had to go through that. I know it's bloody exhausting.
Yeah.
It's really not good. But yeah, thank you very much. It's I try and tell myself that every time I have to set one. Luckily, I haven't had to for a while, but yeah, you're right. It's something that I might have to keep putting the work in for.
Yeah, and if put in the work if that's a relationship that you are willing to put in that work for.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah. I've also kind of thought, you know, if she is going to be difficult about it, then okay, fair enough. I'm off. I'm not putting up with that.
Glad to hear it.
Good. All right. Well,
Great to
thank
talk
you.
to you all.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
for
you very
calling.
much.
Appreciate it.
I hope it gets better.
Mm-hmm.
Bye,
Thanks very
Charlotte.
much. Bye.
All right, Rudy, where do you want to go next?
I will get the caller who's been waiting the next longest amount of time. Let us talk to Keith in Florida. Pronouns he, him. He wants to talk about dating as an atheist, especially with little experience dating even as a theist. Keith, you're on Secular Sexuality.
Hi, Keith.
Yeah, hello, Christy, Matt, and Rudy. I almost said Judy.
Howdy, what can we do for you?
Rudy.
Oh, goodness.
So, I was formerly religious, and I had, of course, no dating experience whatsoever while I was dating, or while I was in religion, while I was a Christian. Just any dating experience I did have was in high school, and that was like at high school.
Yeah.
And so now trying to date outside of religion, now that I've accepted that, you know, I can date, it's really hard because the social learning that you're supposed to do as you're going through life, I just haven't been doing at all.
Yeah,
Because,
I hear that.
you know,
I went on my first date at about 25, so I get you.
And also, Keith, a lot of the social learning that we are supposed to do and that we generally do and that everybody does is wrong. We're teaching people the wrong lessons about gender, about dating, about everything. So you may have a slight edge in that you probably won't have some of the bad baggage that the rest of us got.
Fair to say.
Yeah,
There's
you
a
might be better
reason-
off starting from square one.
There's a reason why that old thing about, you know, you like the girl whose hair you pull and dip into the inkwells from the, you know, Little House on the Prairie or whatever, just to show how old I am. I used to date Laura Ingalls Wilder, I think. But that notion about the interaction the way we're supposed to have it is wrong. Not the least of which, what does something like that teach someone who's gay or bi or pan or, you know? Plus, I'm not in favor of hitting people or hurting people and tugging on their hair unless that's what they want.
Right, unless they consented to it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'll just recommend here that one of the biggest challenges of getting into the dating scene, I guess, if we want to frame it that way, after leaving religion, is getting away from this like Joshua Harris idea of courtship and the idea that like every time you go out on a date, it is just a like a vetting process to see if this is somebody that you want to marry or spend the rest of your life with. If you're not interested in quote casual dating and you're trying to find the one, like great, okay, that's wonderful for you. But if you go into your first date with somebody with that kind of baggage and an unwillingness to just enjoy a cup of coffee with a stranger, then I think not only are you going to miss out on a lot of good times, but you're never going to find that person that you might actually want to spend your life with.
Yeah, no, I've thoroughly abandoned that idea. I'm not sure that marriage is ever going to be for me. And if I ever do find like a long-term partner, I will probably never look at having my own children. Maybe if they really want, adopt, but
sure,
I just can't see. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm 35. It's kind of late to start that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's not right. I'm 33. I know how old I am.
That's not where I thought that was going. No, I appreciate that. And, you know, just to echo it, to remind yourself that, you know, you're not looking for the second date on the first date. You're just looking to enjoy the first date, you know, and to keep that ethic up, that you are there, yeah, to build relationships and all of that, but mostly to remind yourself that you just want to enjoy your time there for what it is, and kind of embrace the impermanence of any sort of dating situation, while also, you know, being mindful of whether or not you enjoy their company. You know, I think so often we get into this dating worldview that we need to like impress somebody and win them over and got to get that phone number, got to get that second date, when we don't really take the time to ask ourselves, like, do I even want to call that person? Is this somebody I would want to see a second time? So yeah, those are my two, I guess, intro tips. What do y'all have for Keith?
Yeah. I've heard that phrased other ways where sometimes people are in love with the idea of being in love. They're more in love with the idea of this than they are with the person. And that applies to dating even before you go dropping a love word or anything else. You're at that point perhaps more interested in having someone to date than the person you're dating.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to ask yourself those questions.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of advice in this area because literally I broke up with the two people that I was dating when I left religion, and then a week later I met the person that I'm engaged to. So I didn't have to be out in the dating scene for very long. I tell people like, yes, I'm a I'm a Tinder success story. Literally the first person that I met on Tinder. I don't have any explanation for how the hell that happened, but I will say that
such bad news for their advertisers, Rudy. You're ruining their algorithm.
But
Tinder, where you only have to swipe once.
Okay, well, I didn't swipe once. I was swiping all day, but then one of the like two people that actually started a conversation with me. But what made our first date good, I think, as far as getting into the dating scene and first dates go, is that I don't remember now if it was Matt or Christy who said this, but I don't think either of us were trying too hard to impress each other. We were just like, we were hanging out. We were like, we seem to have similar tastes, so let's just do things that we enjoy. And if this goes to a romantical kind of place, great. If not, we still had a good time. Mm-hmm. Like, not putting it in your head that it has to go a certain way. You have to make things happen a certain way. Otherwise, it was a failure. Like, there's no fail in dating unless you had a very specific goal in mind. Yeah. You know, and that's not what happens. If your goal is just to go there and have a good time and see how it pans out, then unless the person you go out with is truly unpleasant, probably will be fine.
I think every relationship I've had, every dating, and some of them was just, we dated for a week, we dated for a couple of weeks, we dated for months, whatever. That since I've actually been dating again after the divorce is this, all of them knew the same thing at the very beginning. I only care about be honest, don't violate my trust, and have fun. That's it. That's all I wanted in any of the dating. It doesn't have to be a big thing. I didn't put boundaries on it. Almost everybody I dated was poly, even though I'm not. I don't have a problem with the notion that my partner has other partners. I'm in a completely monogamous relationship now, and that's perfect for me and her and us. But every time I started out a new relationship with somebody, I needed to be very clear. Don't violate my trust. Be honest. I will be honest, and let's have fun. And let's, if it turns out we're not enjoying this, then we should break up, and we should just do it like adults and stay friends and whatever else. And with only like two minor exceptions, it's been fine.
Mm-hmm.
With granted, I'm a bad person to ask because I haven't dated too many people. I don't care about dating too much. I'm in a stable relationship now. All I know is that the steps that I had to take to get from there to here. But I don't know that my story is remotely relevant to Keith's position, other than I can say what I said, which is you probably don't have some of the baggage that others of us may have.
Sure.
And you need to do exactly what you're comfortable with. And I think that if you go into it honest with yourself and whoever you're dating about what you are or aren't looking for. Hey, I'm just looking for one night. Hey, I'm just looking for somebody to talk to. Hey, I'm just looking to not be alone during COVID. Hey, you're going to find that there are people who want those same things. And from there, you can get maybe a friendship or a romantic relationship that lasts forever. The plenty of fish thing. I can't tell you the number of times I've woke up and said, well, you're going to be alone for the rest of your life, only to have it not be true by the end of the day, even though I wasn't, anticipating anything. And that's, don't give up. Put yourself out there and take it as it comes. I think you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. So I hope that gives you something to work with here.
Yeah, thank you for the advice. I'll definitely keep that in mind. I wish I could put it to more active use, but there's a pandemic right now.
Yeah, well, stay safe and good luck, I suppose.
Yeah, have a good one.
Y'all take care. All right. Well, Rudy, do you want to try to see if we can sneak another one in?
Let's sneak another one in. We have Emma calling in from Georgia. Her pronouns are she, her. And she's calling about her husband. Her husband has fears that their child could be pushed into being gay. That is definitely an interesting concern. Emma, how are you?
Thanks for joining us, Emma.
Hi. Hello. I'm quite nervous. I told Katie that, and this is my first time watching. And I follow Matt, but I'm never brave enough to call his show because I hear he's pretty tough.
Well, I'll be quiet.
I kind of, that's how I found the show, because I'm quite a big fan of Matt, but even my husband complains sometimes that I watch too much. He said that's enough.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. I'm sorry to hear about this tension between you and your husband. Can you walk us through it a little bit? Tell us what's going on.
Yes. Can I give you a little bit of my background, because it's just hard for me to start. Katie was amazing. All the things I hear about Katie is true. Everybody say how great Katie is.
Our incredible call screener. For sure. Thank you so much.
And so basically, I'm from Russia, and I moved to the United States when I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. And it was quite different, and I enjoyed that America is very inclusive. And growing up in Russia, I've never seen another person of color till my teenage years when I moved to the United States.
Wow.
So that gives you a little perspective. I've never seen another person of color. I mean, not another anyone but white, but I'm afraid to say the wrong thing. And
you're fine.
And I'm trying to learn. I'm the most left-leaning person I know, and but I'm still learning. Like my husband kind of jokingly refers to people on the LGBTQ people, and he calls them ABC, XYZ, and I found it a little bit like he's just been, I guess, ignorant. But then I watched a video where a person who's a big Trump supporter said that about gay people, like ABC, XYZ, and I told him, no, I can no longer have you say that, because that just immediately took me to that. And he
it's a way of dismissing like really hard fought and meaningful identities for a lot of folks. And that may not be the tone in which he means it, but it's at best pretty ignorant. So I appreciate you holding the line there.
Thank you. He's not a bad person. He's not he kind of minds himself, and he says he doesn't care about politics. He said, unless they're going to come and pay my mortgage, I don't care. And I always tell him, well, you think you don't care, but it does affect you. And I always try to talk to him. And even this last election, I had to drag him to vote. And he told me, I will vote like the way you tell me to. And I said, no, I can't have you just vote because I tell you to. He's like, I'm doing it for you. You care about this. And you tell me to vote for this person, I'll vote. And I said, no, please, it's like, do your own research, because in a way I felt like it's a election fraud in a way. And we had the Georgia election here as well. And I also brought my husband to vote, and we voted for John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. But I told him, please, I said, I don't care who you vote for. It's important for me that you care about the same thing I do.
Take it seriously and see the significance of these things. If I may, do y'all fight along a lot of these types of issues? I mean, I'm very curious about sort of the tension around your child and what that looks like.
Yes, I know that they came up as the main topic, because when I was talking to Katie, and I tend to talk a lot, and I tend to kind of swirl away from the subject, and she tries.
It's a nerve-wracking situation, like, so... Thanks for rolling with us, even as I keep interrupting you and throwing off your flow. I don't mean to make it difficult at all. Just love to know how we can help.
No, sometimes I need that. But this maybe wasn't the main issue I called about, but Katie was kind of like, is this your question?
Sure. If you're not comfortable jumping into that, that's okay.
But I'm being from Russia. I hear a lot of that Russian people are homophobes, and they outlawing gay people. And I hate to say something, and somebody will correct me and say, oh, well, you're wrong. Maybe someone in the comments. I might be wrong, so I'll admit that. But as far as I know, they do. We have celebrities that are openly gay, and they be loved by everyone. So it's kind of hard, like kind of weird for me to hear people say, oh, Russia are just anti-gay. It's illegal. But I know that in Russia, they against promoting anything gay, as in pushing people to become gay, which is the thing. And this is kind of how my husband thinks. And this is what always drives me nuts.
And it's so important to just make it super abundantly clear that there's no media campaign, there's no amount of propagandizing or anything else that's going to make somebody be gay. All you can do is take a straight person or a gay person and cut them off from important parts of their own identity by traumatizing the hell out of them. So we can't become gay or be made gay, but I recognize how prevalent that idea can be, and it is something that we see legislated in a lot of different ways in Russia. And I want to recognize, the distance, both like literally and metaphorically, between us and there. The news stories that we get over here are often skewed in a lot of ways, but this is a really meaningful civil rights issue that I'm not incredibly up on, but I know is happening all the time in a lot of different ways. So I just want to continue to kind of beat that drum to say that nobody is becoming gay because of something a celebrity said or because of, what TV show they were watching or whatever else.
Yeah, as a quite queer person, I could say I certainly wasn't seeing trans and gay people on the TV shows I was allowed to watch. Maybe occasionally, but they were usually like the comedy characters. They weren't the main characters of any shows that I grew up watching.
Being
and
gay
somehow
was the butt of the joke.
Yeah, and somehow I still found myself questioning my gender and questioning who I was attracted to. I mean,
if I can jump in, even though I said I wouldn't, I don't think I'll be scaring Emma at all. But what I would say is a lot of what people are afraid of, hey, my kid stopped going to church and went out and hung out with this group, and now they're a different person. And that different person fear is true of now they're not a Christian, now they're gay, now they're anything. And the truth is, that's who they were. What was happening beforehand is you were inhibiting their ability to be who they were and express it. And so the first thing you got to do is point out, A, why are you even being gay as a negative thing in the first place? B, there's not something out there that just magically turns people gay. The truth is human sexuality is a massive spectrum and people fall everywhere from, matter of fact, I don't think anybody's, this Christy will correct me, I'm sure, but colloquially what I'm saying is I don't think anybody's truly completely straight, but how do you I imagine some people are always going to be that way, but it's like we've just viewed it as a negative, and oh my gosh, something terrifying is happening to my children. They've stopped believing in God. They've stopped, holding to the family's values. And the secondary discussion needs to be, are the family's values actually a good thing? And they're not.
For sure.
Okay, can I answer that? Basically, were you saying, why do we view gay as a bad thing? And my husband always says, yes, if my kid comes out to me, he says he's gay, and he's like, if nothing's going to change, I'm going to love him the same way, I'm going to support him, but let's not make him that if we can avoid it, kind of thing. And also it kind of ties that, like in Russia, we force left-handed children to write with their right hand, not because being left-handed views as something bad, but because it's easier to be a right-handed person. And I heard that it hurt a lot of kids who were naturally left-handed and they were forced to use their right hand. And you can learn to do it, but it's not something that they were kind of forced into it in a way that where the teachers would like smack you with a ruler.
It's a great metaphor, and I think it represents it in a lot of ways. So I hope that provides a little bit of clarity. I'm glad that you are pushing back on these ideas and that you are, holding the line and holding him accountable in some ways, but that also it sounds like there's some good back and forth. Even if he is still kind of working to metabolize some of these ideas, it sounds like he hears you and he listens.
Yes, he's a good person. He always say, I hate when you use the word homophobe, because even recently we had an argument about he's against the bathrooms being trans bathrooms, and we had we don't usually argue. You asked me earlier if we argue a lot, and we do not usually. But this is the kind of subject that I try not to go deep in, because I end up sleeping on the couch because I'm so mad. And the recent one was the bathroom thing, where I tried to discuss with him. He's against transgender people using the bathroom, and well,
where am I going to go?
And the example.
Rudy's got a piece somewhere.
The example he gave me just really, really drew me nuts, because he said, well, how would you feel if I'm in a man's bathroom and there's a woman who's pretending to be a man walks in and pulls down her pants? And I say, why would she be pulling down her pants? And he said, like, all the way down. And I said, is that what you do in the bathroom? And is that what other men do? He's like, no, because we have something to pull out, but she doesn't. So for her to be able to position herself in a man's uterus, she'll have to do that. And I was like, wow, you're out of your goddamn mind if you think she wants to put, or whatever he calls it, in this position. And he calls it a woman pretending to be a man, and vice versa, a man pretending to be a woman. And this is, he just kind of not educated, and neither am I. I'm trying to learn. But this just drew me so insane. And he said the same thing about, he's like, how would you feel if a man pretending to be a woman walks into your bathroom and waves his thing around? And I'm like, do you really think that that's happening?
Yeah, we definitely know that's not a thing that's happening. That's not what, I mean, first of all, that's not what a trans identity is or means in any kind of real way. But in any case, I'm glad that you are educating yourself. And we really appreciate you watching this show and giving us a call and just kind of letting us know about this journey that you've been on. So I really appreciate it. I hope that we've been able to offer a little bit of insight and growth, and God, if nothing else, I guess commiseration as you're working to bridge a gap with somebody who's still working on wrapping their head around some things.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for
all
calling.
I would add to that before saying goodbye is just I tell your husband how many times you've been in a women's restroom and seen anybody's vagina, which is probably zero.
This is extra funny for me because on March 1st, I sat down on stage with Dinesh D'Souza, and through the course of that discussion, Dinesh decided it would be a really good time to talk about trans people. And that was a really huge mistake on his part, because he started by comparing it to just identifying as a frog, which was ridiculous. But he made a comment about how he wouldn't want his wife or daughter to be in a women's room, only to have a trans woman walk in and start flashing their testicles around. And I'm sitting next to him thinking, I've been walking into rooms with people who presumably have penises and testicles my entire life. I don't recall a single time where I've seen another man's testicles or another person's testicles.
But that's because they weren't transgender. That's what somebody was saying. That's normal. People don't usually do that, but transgender people would definitely walk. That's what they're fighting for. They're coming into the women's bathroom so they can flash their testicles and vice versa. That's what they're fighting
They're just
for.
such shorter routes. If you wanted
question,
to be a flasher and a dick, there's so many easier ways to go about it.
You don't have to assume a whole new gender identity. You could just go and do that.
You could just there's
nothing stopping anybody from walking into the industry.
That wouldn't be legal.
It wouldn't be legal. They get arrested.
They
get arrested either way.
Unless you're transgender and you have the right to do it. So basically, transgender fighting for the right to make that legal, to flash people. Basically, that's
oh my gosh,
great idea.
So there are people who like to flash people, and some of them may be trans, but that's not the trans agenda.
Yeah, that's about as far as it goes.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, I only flash people for money. Follow me on OnlyFans.
Yes. And I will point out that I've seen a number of penises in the restroom over the years. Still don't recall ever seeing any testicles, and it was so strange that he went directly to that. It's like he doesn't mind seeing a penis. He just doesn't want you to raise it enough so you can see underneath it.
Got to draw a line somewhere.
It's so strange.
And that place is right at the start.
My OnlyFans is basically it's consensual flashing.
Yeah,
it's different.
Exactly.
But I never really got to my question. But you did guys provide me a lot of useful information. But I just feel kind of weird because I deviated from one topic to another, and I know you guys have other calls waiting. But
yeah, well, hit us up in an email or give us another call. We'd love to hear from you. I do have a few more interview questions I'd like to ask both of these folks before I let them out the door. But please reach out. You can hit us up, sex@atheist-community.org, or give us a call next week.
And,
Okay, thank you so much. You guys were amazing. And Matt,
Yes, ma'am.
I survived it.
You did. You did.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
not nearly as scary as you might have thought. By the way, the email address sex@atheist-community.org was never my email address.
Oh, okay.
What's your email address and your phone number and your address?
Try to talk to them. Thanks so much, Emma.
Yeah, have a great night.
Thank you so much. Have a great night as well. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
guys.
Emma.
Yeah.
Well, just very briefly, I'd like to maybe even try to sneak in one or two more calls before we wrap up. But I wanted to kind of ask both of y'all how being, an atheist, but then also an activist has impacted your dating and your relationships. You kind of touched on the idea of the dating pool and how that was impacted, and so I'm just really curious what being sort of out as an activist and somebody who's trying to push the needle on these issues has done for you in relationships.
Me or Rudy first?
Matt, you probably have way more to say on the activism part than I do.
Well, we'll see. For me, the activism stuff has impacted. So the atheism only impacted the notion that I would prefer to date other secular individuals.
Sure.
The activism has actually impacted it more, not just because I have some amount of celebrity notoriety, whatever, within the community. That does impact, dating, but I couldn't possibly date someone who wasn't on board with the amount of time that I devote to the community, to doing multiple shows in a week. This week I did Atheist Experience on Sunday. I did the Hang Up last night. I'm doing this tonight. I'm doing a debate tomorrow night, and then I'm doing Atheist Experience on Sunday again. And while this is a slightly heavier live show week, in between that, I do lectures, debates, record videos. And when we're not in the middle of a global pandemic, I travel all around the world to speak wherever somebody's going to invite me. That can be hard on a relationship. It's hard enough to be, like right now I'm in a long distance relationship. A long distance relationship, I think, is probably going to be harder than just a relationship where somebody travels frequently. But they've got to be on board with the mission and understanding of my schedule and what I've devoted myself to. It's not for everybody. But the bigger issue is that they have to be okay with the notion that they're going to be publicly associated with me. If I say something and I'm under attack, like I spent, I don't know, I've more time talking to the FBI and police last week than I did my own immediate family members, because sometimes there's a concern or whatever. I don't want to get into it, but you got to be okay with that. And then I don't have security issues in the way that perhaps Sam Harris does. But there are still issues. And that's a lot. When you're an activist for a maligned minority about contentious issues where you are going to be offending people's core identities, it's hard to date somebody who's doing that. I mean, you're going to get some friendly fire. You're going to, when they're shooting at me, they're shooting at you type of thing. I mean, figuratively, but I suppose literally as well.
Yeah.
And that's something to consider, no matter, not just, if you host a big show, if you do anything public where you're putting your actual name and your life on it, that's something that all your prospective partners have to be okay with. Or you just don't tell anybody that, hey, I don't even have a partner, and then you keep your relationship secret. I do have a partner. She's awesome.
It's definitely good to say that, reminder, she's awesome. I have a partner and she's awesome. Yeah, my partner is awesome too. I'll say that very easily.
I mean, I wasn't going to lead with this, but I feel like if I don't say something, I might be in trouble for it later. So, if you're watching, I love you. You're wonderful. Rudy, go right ahead.
I have been so privileged with my partner in doing activism. He's the one that encouraged me to start activism. It started with me. I'd always tell him Bible stories that I had heard growing up, and I would sort of rephrase them in my own more casual colloquial language. And because these stories have been drilled into me, I can recite them in my own words. And I enjoyed it. And after I deconverted, it was like, this Bible thing is really fucked up. Like, these stories are just messed up. How did I ever read this and not think, this is messed up? And so I got this idea for doing atheist Bible readings. And I kind of floated the idea by Nathan, and he was like, you should do it. And he's had my back the whole time. He was the first person that bought me this microphone, which you see right here, this mic here. He bought that for me as a gift. He's helped me with a lot of my equipment, and he has been like my number one supporter, the number one person who's believed in me and my ability to do everything that I have done. I really didn't have that confidence in myself, but he had that confidence in me. And it's really weird to even think that I could do any of this without him. I mean, there's pictures. I'm looking through my Facebook right now trying to find a specific picture of a protest that I organized, and we had matching t-shirts that say love never shuns, visit jwfacts.org on the back and stuff like that. And he was wearing that shirt earlier today, and every time I see that, I'm just like, that is a really great reminder of not only something that I've accomplished, but something that he has supported me 100% on. He has never been in the way of my activism. He's always been my biggest supporter, and I don't even know if I could or even would have done most of the things that I have done without him having my back.
That's a beautiful story. I appreciate you sharing it. I'd actually love to take a look at that picture and just the story behind it.
If I can find it.
Sure. Well, I appreciate both of y'all kind of sharing your experiences and walking us through some of that. Before we go, I think we have time to sneak in maybe at least one more call. I don't know, Rudy. Sophie's choice. Like, who are you thinking?
Oh, this is a tough one, but you know I'm a sucker for a they them pronoun. Let's talk to Ashley.
Sure.
They say that their relationship with parents and dealing with aftermath of coming out, additionally likely transitioning. That's a lot, Ashley. How are you doing?
I'm okay on the whole. I've been worse, been better, but yeah. How about you guys?
Pretty good.
Yeah, not too bad. Kind of relieved to see that the inauguration went off without a hitch yesterday.
Yeah.
So, yeah, right. It was exactly as boring as I needed it to be. But what's on your mind today?
Well, I came out about 6 months ago as transgender, and you know, I've been, I don't know, I guess kind of letting people get used to the idea to some extent before really strongly considering transitioning. But I'm kind of at that point now. But I just don't know how to approach that with my parents, especially. Most people are pretty okay with that, even though they're all pretty, conservative Christians. But with my parents especially, they say they support me and love me and care about me, but it's still, we believe what you're doing is wrong, and, we don't think this is something that you should do. And, when I bring up, I asked them at one point, there's all these studies that say this is beneficial, this is a good thing. And they're like, no, we don't care about any of that. And so that's tricky. But what makes it even trickier right now, especially, is just, everything going on. COVID, obviously, but that trickles down to, I don't know, a bunch of other stuff that I won't get into for, privacy reasons. But, suffice it to say, my parents are going through a lot with me, with COVID, with other relationships that they have. And so, I don't know how to approach it with them, or to talk to them and say, hey, this is what I want to do and this is where I'm at. Mm-hmm. So that's basically it in a nutshell.
I guess the first thing I would ask is, are you safe? Are you safe to talk about this?
Absolutely. I'm definitely 100% safe.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just uncomfortable right now. Well.
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
Well, that's a better place to start than a lot of people. That's
Yeah,
something in your favor, is that it's going to be awkward, it's going to be weird, it already has been like, oh, well, thanks for saying you still love me and then saying that you don't approve. Cool.
Yeah. I get the feeling, that they love and support the me that they've always known, which is not really the real me. And I'm not sure how that would change if the me that they know changes.
I can definitely relate to that. A few months ago, I went to the courthouse to pick up some papers to get my name legally changed. I haven't gone through with it yet, mostly because it costs money. And for some reason, there's a law in my town that I have to get it published in the newspaper first, that I'm getting my name changed.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
I know.
10 million questions, but
so
okay.
It's like I'm gonna have to call the newspaper and take out a space there, which will cost money, and then the actual legal so I haven't done it yet, just for that reason.
Include a dead name in that posting? I'm sorry, I know you're trying to.
I don't know. I haven't looked into it that much yet, but if I can help it, my dead name won't be involved. But anyways,
that's awful. Moving on.
I think that's kind of from an older law where it's like if you're trying to do it to like avoid a debt or something,
Yeah, I think that's the reason.
Needs to know you're not trying to skip down or disappear or whatever.
Yeah, I think that is the reason.
What if there isn't a newspaper?
There is one though. It's a very small town.
Newspapers are dying.
Well, and what counts as a newspaper? We could really take this rabbit trail.
No, I brought up the wrong topic. But my point in bringing this all up is that after I picked up these papers, I called my mom, who I'm not in that much contact with at all. This is one of the most recent conversations I've had with her in recent memory, and this was still a few months ago. I just called her to say, hey, I don't hate the name Rachel. It's not a bad name. I don't despise it. I don't despise everything associated with it, but it's not me. And I'm getting my name changed. And she went, okay, is this like a gender thing? And I was like, partly, yes. But I want you to know before I take on this new name that I'm not doing this to reject you or what you or what you think of me or anything like that. I mean, the name Rudy is actually my grandfather's nickname, so clearly I'm not rejecting my whole family by taking on a different name. But that was a difficult conversation, and the conversation ended pretty much with her saying, thanks for letting me know. I appreciate it. You'll always be Rachel to me. And it was like, yeah, I guess I don't know why you were going to say, I don't know why I thought you'd say anything different, but it still kind of stings. And
I get the feeling that that's what it's going to be with my parents. They'll be like, oh, you're starting hormones. Well, thanks for letting us know. Okay, you're still David. Deal with it. I think that's just how it's going to be, which makes me want to kind of distance myself from them, but that's hard to do for various complicated reasons.
Yeah, I don't live with them.
I'd like to say something that may be clumsy, and happy for Rudy or Christy to clear this up. I can't fully relate to your transition, Ashley, as I'm not trans, but dealing with a conflict about who you are with regard to your parents is something that I do have some experience with. The thing that I try to remind people is that, first of all, you're the one that in the relationship who is changing. And you have to acknowledge that. That doesn't make it your fault. It's not like we're trying to assign blame here. You have to look at it from their perspective that you have changed. You have also been the one who has been pretending. That is also not your fault. And it may have been a process of discovery for you. That, however, may be useful in conversation to say the reason that they did not know the real you was because of their ideas and their impact on your life that you did not want to disappoint them. You did not want to go up against them. So they built this structure where you felt safest pretending or not recognizing who you were. And at some point, you have to be you. And in the conversation with them, you got to give them some time. I think Dan Savage recommends like a year for them to ask all the awful questions and be awful and stuff like that, and then draw a hard line in the sand. But it's one of those things that I keep reminding people, you're the one that is changing in the relationship. You have to own that. But that's not an issue of blame. That is just, hey, I'm recognizing who I am. I'm willing to give you time. It took me time. It took you time to come to terms with this. You've got to give them some time to come to terms to it too. But you don't have to take bullshit from any of them. And you don't have to keep anybody who's toxic in your life for 1 second longer than you want to.
Absolutely.
That's very well said, Matt. I couldn't agree more. Honestly, it's, you've kind of hit the nail on the head with where I'm at and how it's been for the last, how many ever years. And so I don't want to be just a jerk and be like, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do, and I don't care how you guys feel about it. And it's deal with it. But I also don't want to just be a pushover and say, well, if they don't like it, then I'm just going to wait forever, not do it or whatever.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, you have to do what you have to do for you. But you can do that and still say, I realize that this is going to be a difficult adjustment. This isn't going to be like this isn't an A to B thing. This is like, well, obviously you can just move on from here. Like, it's going to take time if they catch up at all. And of course, you want to hope that they do. And if at some point you're like, we've been doing this for a while, it's pretty clear where I'm at. And at this point, I haven't changed anymore. I did the changing like a whole year ago. The changing is over. This has been me for a while. And if you can't catch up with that, then, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, I'm going through a bit of that myself with my in-laws right now. The other day, we were having a couple of drinks and playing a card game, and my sister-in-law kept going, she, her, and I actually texted her a little later that night and pulled her aside in a different room, and I was like, I don't know how to ask you this in a way that doesn't sound accusatory, but are you misgendering me on purpose? I want to make it clear, I'm not accusing you of anything. This is not an argument. This is, if the answer to that is yes, it's going to be a discussion, not an argument. And she said, no, I'm so sorry. I just kept slipping up. I'm just not I just kept forgetting, but I know that those are not your pronouns and I'm sorry. And I was like, okay, cool. That's all I needed to know. And since then, she has been a lot better about correcting herself when she got it wrong.
Good on you, Rudy. I just want to jump in with that real quick. Yeah, congrats for being assertive that way.
Yeah, it was hard, trust me. But she's also the one in my family who I was the most sure wouldn't misgender me on purpose. So it was like, if you actually don't have my back and I thought you do, that's something I need to know right now. But it's one of those things, if you have any other family, siblings, friends that might be around your parents and they will have your back, that's really helpful. Just to have somebody else in the room who will correct themselves when they misgender you is a lot more of a reassurance, and a lot like not everybody in the room is misgendering me at the same time. That in and of itself is a big relief for me, and hopefully that is something that you can find for yourself when you're trying to get your parents on board with all this.
Yeah.
I think one of
finally,
I
just wanted to say quickly that you kind of started this all off with the question of like, how do I tell my parents? How do I do this? And I don't know that we can answer that for you, but I definitely want to submit the idea that you shouldn't do it alone. I hope that you feel well supported in this, and that's likely going to include some professionals. I would definitely recommend that if you are going through the experience of publicly transitioning and coming out to your family and everything else that goes along with potential hormones and a number of different changes and struggles, that you have somebody you can confide in that can help you unravel some of these things and help create a little bit of a safe space for organizing yourself. So if you're not currently working with a therapist, I would definitely recommend that be something you put on your radar as a important tool to carry with you through this process.
Yeah, absolutely. I did see a therapist briefly, but COVID got in the way, so it's tricky right
Sure.
now. But
yeah, it's tricky in a lot of ways. I definitely hear that.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that it's bad timing that this happened now during COVID, but it's kind of because of COVID that it all came out for complicated reasons. So life is what it is, I guess.
Yeah. Well, however it's happening, I'm just excited that you're moving forward and that you're being transparent with yourself about yourself, as well as transparent with the people around you. It's a scary and exciting journey, and I really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for taking my call. It's good to talk to some people always.
And if you have any new developments, please call back.
Yeah,
love to hear how
Ashley.
things are going for you.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
All right, have a good night.
I appreciate you, Ashley. Take care.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the misgendering thing, I really appreciate what Rudy had to say, especially, let's ask the question, find out whether it's intentional or not. And while I can't fully relate, I can kind of a little bit because, and this is the example I've used for other people. For everybody who goes by their given name, think of the version of your name that you hate the most. Like for me, it's Matty, Matty. It's infantilizing. It never sounds right. I can't stand it. Now, it's not the same as misgendering me. It's not going to impact me in the same way. But if I tell someone, hey, I don't like to be called Matty, please don't call me that, when they continue to do so, that's just as obnoxious, and it tells me something about them. It's not that they're just I could ask, hey, are you doing that on purpose just to piss me off or not? But it is similarly obnoxious. And I think for the people who don't understand the importance of pronouns to people who've been marginalized, who are trying to help change everybody's understanding of all this, maybe pick the version of your name that just drives you crazy when somebody says it. And if you can't think of one, okay, maybe you're better than the rest of us, or maybe just add -poo to your name. So like Christy Poo or Matty Poo,
please don't,
or whatever. Yes. So it's cringy. And I think that might wake some people up. Oh, that's what it feels like. Only worse.
Yeah. Yeah. But honestly, that's a pretty good analogy. That's a really good place to start for people who don't get it. But there's always going to be somebody who's like, yeah, well, I would just suck it up. But those
good
people
for you.
that still tells them tells you everything.
Nobody asked.
That's what Dawkins, that's the bullshit that Dawkins pulled when we were on stage, because he was asked a question about stuff like this, and he was just like, well, I just think they need to put the big boy or big girl panties on. And I'm just like, oh gosh, can you have any less empathy for people?
For real.
Yeah, Jesus. Oh boy.
Well, I so appreciate the two of you joining me tonight and kind of opening up a little bit about your own experiences and just walking through all of this with us. Before we wrap up, though, I want to make sure to take a moment and thank our incredible crew and all of the good folks that have put this together. We already mentioned Katie and all the work she does in screening the calls, but there's so many wonderful people that make this show happen, and I'm just so appreciative to all of you. So thank you all for being here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I really, when you asked, I'm like, and yet I'm happy I was here. And if anything I said was remotely useful, so be it.
It was.
Declared. Yeah. Well, I guess the final step now is to let people know that I think the three of us are going to be in Discord after the show if you're catching this live. So if you'd like to keep the conversation going, come and check us out there. If you're not listening to this live but don't want to be or want to be able to connect with your atheist community of Austin, please jump on to any of the wonderful places that we are online. We're always on Discord. There are a number of great fan groups that have sprung up that you can see a lot of the hosts and things in. The facebook.com/group/secular-sex-FG is where you'll find our official fan group. And we'd love to have you just participate in this organization and in this community. And, in the meantime, I guess we'd love to encourage you to go out and give yourself a nice big old orgasm. Or better yet,
give somebody
else one.